I just figured I should probably share something about myself because, we've been talking about fasting for a while because, like, I've been showing signs of my. Okay, hey guys, what's up? This is Sheree from Culture Toronto again, and I'm joined again by my man Pierre Lafayette. Thank you
What's
for
up?
joining, Pierre. We go back to UFT. We used to train Muay Thai together. I love this guy, and he knows a lot about health and stuff. So, to continue, last time we were talking about fasting, and I think that before we jump into some of the gaps that we had, like on like autophagy and stuff like that, maybe we should try to summarize like what were the fasting like benefits.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we went over a lot of things last time, and yeah, like we've both been doing intermittent fasting, and there's been tons of research that has started to show the true benefits of doing basically what, human beings were doing a long time ago, back in the hunter-gatherer times, which is basically to not be eating 24/7, right? To not be snacking all the time. And the benefits range from increased energy and less strain on your digestive system to reducing the blood sugar and insulin in your body and also taking off the strain from your organs, especially like the kidneys and the liver and different things like that, because of this fact that you're giving your body a chance to repair itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about like one of the newer kind of discoveries, or not really discovery, but just like a revelation, which is this process of autophagy, which is
Right.
basically this cellular recycling, ability of the body to basically take old damaged proteins and to use them, consume them, and rebuild the body. So basically, get rid of the old misshapen proteins and parts of your body that really needs to be cleaned out to keep yourself functioning at an optimal level, and to use that as energy and use that to rebuild new properly structured cellular membrane and proteins and different things like that. So that process of autophagy, it won the Nobel Prize in 2016. The research a Japanese scientist did on it, basically showing the link with autophagy and how it can be preventative for cancer and for all these different neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one of the biggest benefits is how it can affect people that have diabetes, right? Because
For
um,
sure.
it's some it's something that allows your body to basically use all your glycogen stores, which is basically like the sugar that's stored within your body, or like the excess glucose that's stored in your body for energy. And once you're able to tap into those stores, it keeps it out of the bloodstream, which is a really big deal because that's how it starts to progress as we start to get into like insulin resistance and having issues clearing out the blood sugar.
Yeah, I think that one really hits home for me because like I have family members that have diabetes. And like it's so concerning because when you hear Jason Fung talk about it, he's like, look, when you get diagnosed with diabetes, you already have elevated insulin. So the logic behind giving you more insulin, I'm not saying it's stupid because obviously doctors are not going to do anything to harm you knowingly, right? It's just like the
Sure.
current research is showing that that might not be the best thing because when you give someone with diabetes insulin, their insulin resistance gets worse, and so they end up needing more insulin down the line. It's just like an endless feedback loop.
Yeah, it's like anything. I mean, if you give someone pain medication, over time, their body is going to become resistant to that and it's going to need a bigger dose. So you're going to have to keep upping pain meds. Otherwise, it's not going to really work
Yeah.
unless you address the root cause of the pain. So this is a problem with how they treat diabetes right now, which is basically they're not addressing the root of the issue, which is the insulin resistance. So unless you go in and address that root cause, it's going to keep getting worse, and you're going to keep having to up your dosage of the insulin, and there's going to continue to be the damage, in the body as time progresses and as the condition gets worse because you haven't actually addressed it.
Yeah. And just for like people watching, like, so what does insulin do?
So basically, it's a hormone. So it's kind of like you have cortisol, you have adrenaline, I can't pronounce
Norepinephrine.
it. norepinephrine, yeah,
Yeah.
which are basically just hormones that your body uses to regulate different things like your fight or flight system, which is basically if something is chasing you or something a dangerous situation happens, it sends the blood to your limbs, to your legs and to your arms so that you can fight or run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you also have your parasympathetic nervous system, which starts the process of the rest and relaxation, which is basically the repair process. So your insulin, it's in charge of. So an interesting thing that most people don't realize is that sugar is considered toxic to the human body. So I mean, you kind of know this
No,
intuitively.
that's funny. I just saw a poll today on LinkedIn where this
Yeah,
guy's like, "Hey, what would you rather eat for the rest of your life? Rice, pasta, or steak?" And after our conversation, I just like hit the comments and I was like, "Bro, carbohydrates and sugars aren't even necessary. The
yeah,
answer is
exactly.
only steak."
Exactly, right. So, I mean, you know this intuitively because, like, if you eat too much sugar and you don't brush your teeth, then it'll start to damage the enamel of your teeth. And then eventually you'll start to have cavities and you'll eventually lose your teeth. So, that tells you already that, this is not something like people weren't brushing their teeth, back in the
Yeah,
days, like in
it's
the,
crazy.
the evolutionary times. So, how is it that they never had cavities and they lose all their teeth and they're able to live, a healthy lifespan? Well, they actually didn't consume a lot of sugar, right? Because it was very
Mm-hmm.
scarce and hard to find. So insulin, what it basically does is that it is boosted when it's trying to remove the sugar that is in your bloodstream. So you increase your insulin as you're responding to the threat, which is basically you have this sugar that's now in your bloodstream because you consume some carbs or you consume some simple sugars or some fructose, from fruits. And your body has to regulate the amount that is in your bloodstream because it knows that it can be dangerous if there's too much sugar in the bloodstream because it'll start to damage veins and cause all kinds of issues like we see in people that have diabetes. So what insulin does is
Like
that
including amputations and like
sure,
blindness and no,
exactly.
actually my family member experiences like basically what they describe as their limbs being on fire. Uh,
Right. So there's
Neuropathy.
various, things that can happen as the blood sugar, starts to deteriorate the veins and the arteries and like the different, parts of your vascular system, which can affect pretty much everything, right? From, like you said, limbs being amputated, blood clots, happening, and it aggravates all these other conditions, right? So if you have heart issues or yeah, inflammation in your body, like all these things will be, worsened by having diabetes because now you have all these different vascular issues. And we've seen with COVID that, diabetes is a huge, huge risk factor for COVID, death and severe
Mm,
cases
that's
because of the
crazy. Yeah.
effect. Yeah, and I mean, some people are saying, or like a lot of research is starting to show that COVID is kind of a vascular disease, or vascular illness, where it's really it affects people that have issues with their vascular system a lot worse. So this is diabetics, this is people that are obese. So yeah, so just coming back to the insulin, so insulin, will be increased so that it can deal with the blood sugar threat and then reduce the amount of blood sugar. So it basically reacts to the amount of sugar that you have in your blood, which is that you intake from whatever you're consuming that you're eating normally. So the more sugar that you intake, or even carbohydrates, pasta, breads, all these things are basically chemically the equivalent of sugar. And the insulin goes up to basically deal with that, reduce your blood sugar. And when that's not working properly, which we call insulin resistance,
Hmm.
what ends up happening is you keep having to increase the insulin and it's not doing a proper job of clearing out the blood sugar. So now we get into the pre-diabetes and then eventually diabetes.
Yeah, and before we jump into a video, I just wanted to clarify that so the blood sugar goes up, insulin rises to meet it, and it
Sure.
takes the sugar out of the blood and puts it into the cells.
Sure.
Um, and that's why, like with the case of type 1 diabetes, they tend to have really low energy levels because their pancreas isn't producing, it's not producing insulin. It's very different from type 2 diabetes. Type 1, these people don't have insulin, so actually they're eating and eating and eating and they can't help losing weight. There's even like something that Jason Fung was describing, which was it was kind of like a diabetes anorexia kind of thing, where like people diabetics who want to lose weight will purposefully stop taking insulin. It's kind of
Sure.
like a cheat code, you know what I mean? Like, but it's super dangerous. But let's jump into this video.
Sure, let's go.
How long has it been since you last ate? People who fast intermittently often eat within an 8-hour block, leaving 16 hours of fasting in between. During that 16-hour stretch, their bodies undergo an important change that sets them apart from non-fasters. Here's how it works. When you eat, you store some of that energy in the liver as glycogen. But after 10 to 12 hours of not eating, your glycogen reserves will be extremely low. As a result, you may feel more irritable than normal, a term scientists call hangry. The upside is, with little glycogen left, fat cells in your body release fats into your bloodstream. The fat cells head straight to your liver, where they're converted to energy for your body and brain. So you are literally burning fat to survive. Blood samples show that people who had fasted for 12 to 24 hours experienced a 60% increase in energy from fat, with the biggest change occurring after 18 hours. This is the benefit to intermittent fasting because it puts you in a state called ketosis. And it's why researchers think intermittent fasting could be the key to a longer, healthier life. The process of burning fat releases chemicals called ketones. In the brain, ketones trigger the release of an important molecule called BDNF. BDNF helps build and strengthen neurons and neural connections in areas of the brain responsible for learning and memory, which could explain why a boost in ketone production has been shown to improve memory in people with early signs of dementia in as soon as 6 weeks. Increasing ketones in the body is also a common treatment for patients with severe epilepsy. You don't necessarily have to fast to boost your ketone levels. Introducing more fatty foods into your diet and cutting back on carbs can have a similar effect. A group of people who tried this method for 3 months not only lost weight and body fat, but also saw a decrease in blood pressure and a hormone that is related to aging and disease. But scientists have discovered that fasting increases ketone levels more. Ketogenic diets can increase ketones 4-fold, whereas fasting has been shown to increase ketones by up to 20-fold. As a result, fasting compared to a ketogenic diet may have a stronger, more beneficial effect on overall health. Yet many Americans who eat 3 meals a day with snacks in between never reach ketosis, and therefore aren't producing enough ketones to promote good health. Fasting and ketosis have been a key to our survival from the beginning. They helped our ancient ancestors survive through bouts of starvation, and today, they're becoming recognized as a way to help keep future generations mentally and physically disease-free.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good actually. That was a pretty good 3-minute video. But you know what was bothering me this week, man? Like I was trying to tell my friend who's like a little overweight that like they should try fasting. You know, just give it a shot. And they were just like, it just doesn't, it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for me. And I'm like, bro, if you don't give your body food energy, what's it gonna do? You're not gonna die. It's gonna use the fat.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of factors there because you could do the 16-8 fast, and in those 8 hours, you could consume so many calories that you're not going to lose weight. So, but the way you're supposed to be doing it is you just remove one meal and you eat the way you normally would, for the other 2 meals, or you change your diet completely. And, it has an additive effect, on top of the diet changes.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be the most healthy way to lose fat, because when you think about it, this is what your body was designed to do, to store fat for times when you need energy, when you don't have a source of food, and to use that fat in an efficient way to provide yourself with energy. So I think in the video it was saying that it's more efficient to run off of ketones, which we know, and that's why people think that, or that's why it shows that you have more cognitive function, and the energy that you have for your mental acuity is way, way higher when you're relying on ketones, when you're using your fat as energy, versus a process where you have to go through converting, the glucose, the glycogen, and using that, pulling it from the bloodstream and using that for energy. It just turns out that like burning fat is the most efficient way, and that's why you operate so much better off of that fat burning, because it's basically like a clean burning fuel, right? For your
Yeah.
body.
That's a
Versus
good analogy.
Right, versus like the whole insulin, having to deal with the blood sugar, making sure it's not too much, it's clearly not natural. Whereas the fat storing and fat burning process is the most natural, like human thing,
Hmm.
which is, you have periods of feast and you have periods of famine. And this is how it's always been. You have the hunt, you go and get your food, you eat it, you feast off of it, and then you're going to have periods where you're not going to have food for a while. So the human body is designed to be able to go through that. So I think the video talked about some of those benefits that you get. And yeah, of course, losing weight is a great benefit. It talked about the inflammation markers, how those go down, and then that translates to more longevity if you do this long term. Decrease and kind of the early symptoms of like things like Alzheimer's, the memory loss and decline. And it talked about increasing the BDNF, which is something that grows the neurons and the synapses in your brain and allows you to have better brain function and ensure that you're not accumulating the amyloid plaque, which is basically what happens.
Right?
Yeah, from the Alzheimer's, where you get that plaquing in your brain, which is like the most horrible thing that you can get, because it's going to start to deteriorate your cognitive function over time. But if you have this autophagy process, which does the cleanup, it allows you to basically clean up and avoid the plaquing. So there's just so many benefits. The inflammation, it talked about the decrease in blood pressure, which is, if you have high blood pressure, then chances are if you try intermittent fasting, it'll bring it down a bit. It'll help you regulate the blood sugar. It'll help you with cholesterol. The inflammation goes down. There's just so many benefits.
Yeah, I think one important thing that I'm kind of getting from the video, like if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but reading between the lines a little bit, you're seeing that fasting has a positive effect on so many different maladies, right? Like, I mean, epilepsy, like Alzheimer's, diabetes. Yeah. It kind of, like, if you have like a holistic view of health, right? Like that, kind of like it's all related, that kind of viewpoint, then I think that it's probably logical to conclude that diet is kind of driving all these diseases in a way. Not like entirely, because each disease is different, but there's like this there's something wrong with our diet, I feel like, overall.
Well,
That could be,
I think
yeah.
there's been a huge kind of shift in the way that we eat, versus how we used to eat. The addition of all these genetically modified foods and all these different toxic chemicals that go into our foods, the pesticides, the herbicides, all these different things that we consume regularly. And then there's the addition of these fake oils, the seed oils, the canola oil, vegetable oils, all these different oils that are not natural, that don't actually come from a natural source, and they're basically chemically made, and they can be toxic and have carcinogens and all different, and they cause inflammation because they're high in omega-6s, which your body, like there's a ratio of omega-3s to omega-6 to omega-9s that is ideal for the human body. But the problem right now is that we consume so much of these vegetable oils, which we don't even realize are in all these different pre-processed packaged products, as well as anytime you go to eat at a restaurant, they're frying your McDonald's fries in these seed oils. They're frying like the noodles that you have at the Chinese place. All these different things will have like these sources of these toxic oils, and we've never, like, there's no long-term study that's been done on any of these things, right? So we don't know, well, we kind of know now because we see all the disease that's starting to occur, and we're seeing that all the rates of all these illnesses have really, really picked up as we've changed the way that we eat, and also as we've changed how frequently we eat. Because we used to eat a lot less frequent. We used to eat our 3 meals, maybe one snack in the afternoon, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're just like constantly eating, and we're emotionally eating, and
It's crazy,
it gets
bro.
pretty crazy, right? You break up with someone, and
It's
then now
crazy.
you're eating ice cream all night.
You're
So
damn
it's
right.
so it's and we turn to that as life's become more stressful, right? Because now we have like this kind of culture, which is just kind of keep working, don't sleep, keep or if you're not working, you go out and you party or something, and neither of those things are
Or
what our
drink.
bodies are
I mean,
designed to do.
alcohol is kind of carbs too, in a way.
Well, yeah, alcohol is a different kind of calorie, but it's obviously detrimental to your liver, and it can cause all kinds of other issues. And it leads to just like this culture of um, you know incorrect consumption of nutrients, right, so it's
That's the
you know
theme. That's the theme.
that
Like that. So we're not. So calories can come from carbohydrates. That's like your potatoes and stuff. Your fats. That's like your olive oils and avocados, and
sure,
protein. That's like basically your meat, like
right, yeah,
meat and fish, right? And like, you look at a supermarket. Supermarkets have changed drastically, like with technology in a way, right? Like because I mean, you have like your veggie and produce section, and then you have this like massive section of like stuff that doesn't go bad in bags
yeah,
and boxes. Like
yeah,
cereal and chips and
sure, yeah, the
that
things
kind of
with the
stuff.
preservatives, right, things to keep it fresh, right, so all those things are unnatural, right, because naturally, if you have, some crop, I don't know what it is, if it's corn, let's say, you can't just leave that, in a box forever, right? So they have to be doing something to allow it to be preserved for a longer period, a longer shelf life. And that's just one of the many things that they, put into these boxes, especially if you look at some of like the combinations of fat and sugar and the canola oils, or all these different toxic oils that they put into these products with the
Wait, you said
preservatives and
toxic
MSG.
oils?
Yeah, so I mean, like I consider, and a lot of people do consider, the vegetable oils, the oils that are high in omega-6 that are created in the laboratory. They don't come. It's not like olive oil that, or extra virgin olive oil that comes, from the actual vegetable. It's kind of like they have to do this process to extract the oil, which is like extract the
Oh, like
seed
a
oil.
chemical sort of process.
Exactly. It's a chemical
Yeah.
process, and there's a lot of opportunity for things to deteriorate and for the quality of the oil to be like very, very affected by the process in which they're extracting the oil. So that's why, among many reasons why, a lot of people, and there's clearly a lot of studies that show that the link between inflammation and the consumption of these oils. And if you look at the correlations of the increase of heart disease and heart attacks and all these different cardiovascular events, and the increase of our consumption of these unhealthy oils, it's been pretty dramatic. And the irony is that we went on this rampage against saturated fats, basically saying that saturated fats are the things that are going to kill you.
That's like
So we did it
butter, that kind of
exactly. Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
butter, animal fats, different coconut oil. Those are examples of saturated fats. But we remove, like most people don't consume a lot of it because they've been scared to consume too much saturated fat.
Oh, I
And
remember that. I remember
even
that.
with the
Butter was the
removal of
villain
that,
for a while, man.
exactly, even with the removal and the decrease in our diet, all we've seen is the increase of all these illnesses and cardiovascular events and atherosclerosis and heart attacks. So clearly that wasn't the thing that's going to solve it. And then now we're seeing actually evidence that shows that actually saturated fat is pretty good for you.
Yeah.
And maybe you should consume more of it because your body actually needs it, your brain needs it. And it's pretty interesting.
Okay, I think this is a good place to jump in another video I have. I know I last time we only watched one, but I think this is a pretty good video.
Quit eating greens. And I thought, oh, really? Jesus, Michaela, I'm eating cucumbers, lettuce, broccoli, and chicken and beef. It's like I have to cut out the goddamn greens? It's like, try it for a month. Okay. Within a week, I was 25% less anxious in the morning. Within 2 weeks, 75%. And I've been better every single day. I'm better now, probably, than I've ever been in my life. And I haven't been taking antidepressants for a whole year. So I don't know what, and I weigh 162 pounds. Like and I've actually gained musculature. I've been doing some working out, but not a lot. And so I can sleep 6 hours a night, no problem. I wake up in the morning, I'm awake. If I take a 15-minute nap, that used to take me an hour to recover from, that's gone. Here's the coolest thing. I've had gum disease since I was 25. That's been serious enough I've had to have minor surgical interventions, scraping and that sort of thing to keep it at bay. It's gone. I checked with my dentist before this last tour. No inflammation. And that's associated with heart disease, by the way, gum inflammation and gingivitis. It's a good risk factor for heart disease. It means the systemic inflammation is gone. And it's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to recover from gingivitis. And my gums are in perfect shape. It's like, what the hell? So here's what happened. I lost 50 pounds. It's like, that's a lot, right? I'm nowhere near as hungry as I used to be. My appetite's probably fallen by 70%. I don't get blood sugar dysregulation problems. I need way less sleep. I get up in the morning and I'm fine. I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed. I don't have psoriasis. My legs were numb on the sides. That's gone. I'm certainly intellectually at my best at the moment, which is a great relief, especially doing this tour. Depression is gone. I'm stronger. I can swim better. And my gum disease is gone. It's like, what the hell?
And you've done no blood work, so you don't know what your lipid profile is, or
no. I'll get that done again when I go back.
Do you
to
take any
Toronto.
vitamins?
No. I eat beef and salt and water. That's it, and I never cheat.
Damn.
Ever, not even a little bit.
No
Nothing.
soda, no wine.
I drink club soda.
Well, that's still water.
Well, when you're down to that level, no, it's not. Look, Joe, there's club soda, which is really bubbly. Mm-hmm. There's Perrier, which is sort of bubbly. There's flat water, and there's hot water.
So those
those distinctions start to become important.
That is crazy. Well, we ate last night, and I ate what you ate. We both had that giant tomahawk.
Yep.
I had wine though.
Yep.
I'm curious about this. I'm very curious, and I
me
think
too.
I might try it. But I eat a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
But I don't have any problems, like health problems.
Hey, man, like I'm not. Disclaimer number 2: I am not recommending this to anyone. However, I have had many people come up to me on the tour and say, "Look, I've been following your daughter's blog, and I've lost like 100 pounds." I think, what? You lost 100 pounds? Yeah, I lost 100 pounds in 6 months. I talked to a woman yesterday. She lost 15 pounds in 1 month. She was 70. 70. It's like, this is... here's a question. Why is everyone fat and stupid? That's a question, man. Because it's new.
Is it?
Yes, it is. It's new. And it's not sedentary lifestyle. That hypothesis doesn't seem to hold water. There's something wrong with the way we're eating. And what's wrong is that we're eating way too many carbohydrates, I think. But remember, I'm no expert.
Big shift. The elimination of most carbohydrates has made a big shift in my life. And I do cheat occasionally with bread, occasionally with pasta. I will go off with ice cream and things along those lines. But most of the time, I'm just eating meat and vegetables. Most of the time. And then I'll have a cheat day like, once a week or something like that.
Yeah,
Especially if I go to dinner, I'll have a little pasta. And it doesn't seem to mess me up too bad, but I do feel shitty after I do it. It's like for simple mouth pleasure, I'm allowing myself to feel tired.
Straight up. What'd you think, man?
Yeah, so I didn't know you were going to pull out Jordan Peterson on
Bro,
the channel. Some controversy.
You know what, man? People hate, but I have yet to hear him say anything that I didn't agree with. But people hate, but for me, he's okay. But controversy aside,
I'm on the fence with him. But so they're talking about the carnivore diet, which is basically beyond keto. Where you basically eliminate all the carbs. You're just eating meat, and when you think about it, this is how people survived. In the early, even today, you can find tribes in the world where they just survive off animal meats. And it's very, the plants are like the gathering part of the hunter gathering. That was such a minimal part of what the diet was, in the hunter gatherer times. And, you wouldn't have access to the berries and the things like that all year round. It would just be seasonal. And it'd be, few and far between when you would actually be able to access that. So the elimination, like eating a lot of meat, is not something that's abnormal to the human body. It's kind of how we're evolved. So what he kind of described and, the benefits that he started to get kind of starts to talk about the food sensitivities, right? So this is the idea that people are, well, let's say plants first. Let's go with plants. So for plants, we have like these things called lectins, which are basically the plant's natural defenses to avoid being, consumed and eaten. So they have basically a poison that helps defend against insects. And the problem lies in when we as humans go and we try to eat, these plants, we're also consuming that. So it can also affect us. Mm-hmm. So we can be more sensitive to, consuming these lectins, and that can cause issues in our gut, which can ultimately cause other health issues, overall. That's one aspect of it. The other part of it is when you look at like the refined sugars and the refined carbs, your breads and your pastas, and especially, those that come from, genetically modified crops, there's a lot of different things that can affect you there. And you can have these food sensitivities, which a lot of people do have to gluten, for example. That's a really big one.
Yeah,
dairy is a big food sensitivity. So a lot of people, when they remove dairy, they remove gluten and they remove grains. If they remove those three things, it can have a huge impact. And that's effectively what you're doing when you're doing a carnivore diet where you're just eating meats, is you're removing all these things that could potentially cause a reaction and sensitivity within your body, which can translate to all kinds of things, inflammation, especially from carbs, because we know that eating a lot of carbs increases inflammation. Even refined sugars or some complex carbs, they all increase inflammation in your body. And then you can have issues like eczema or psoriasis, like he was talking about, among other things. So it's not surprising. I've heard a lot of stories, and a lot of doctors who work and prescribe keto and carnivore diets. They've seen this in their patients, where basically they go off keto, or they go onto keto for a while, they go onto carnivore for a while, and then they see all these like issues that they had for years, dandruff, whatever it is, all these different things that they have start to get better.
Yeah, and I think I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to end with one anecdote, because I just figured I should probably share something about myself, because we've been talking about fasting for a while, because like I've been showing signs of my insulin resistance not being top notch and up to speed, right?
Sure.
And the fasting was something that we kind of started doing in response to that. Like, let's get this blood sugar in order. But I gotta say that I've been experiencing like so many other positive benefits in my life, man. Like,
On a squirrel, yeah. You watch a movie, you think it's like that, yeah. You watch a TV show, you think it's like that, yeah. You read a book and you think it's like that, but it hasn't been like that for very long. Because society hasn't developed the technology to place their stories and constructs in the philosophical medium that's entertaining for us to understand. And plus there's so many of us here on this planet, we need a system to organize ourselves in a way that makes us feel like we come